welcome to another edition of the Retail Gazette Unpacked podcast. I'm your host Kieran Howells, and today I'm speaking to Felix Hoffmann. Now, if there is anyone who is clued in on what's happening with the development of AI in retail, it's definitely Felix. For the last nearly 7 years, he's been the founder and CEO of 7 Learnings. They are an AI-powered predictive pricing company, and Felix himself is just incredibly knowledgeable about what's happening within AI and retail. Today we are really delving into Agentic and the effect that Agentic AI is going to have on the retail industry. Felix has some very surprising things to say. It's going to be a fantastic conversation. I'm really looking forward to it. Let's go ahead and dive in.
Hi, I'm Felix, one of the founders of 7 Learnings. Our mission is really to bring back simplicity for retailers and brands by enabling them to steer their business more target-driven. So less on a product level, more like on a larger scale. Say, okay, you want to grow by 10% next week. How can you get there? What do you have to change on product level to get there? And our mission is really to take the target from the retailer and then give back the individual decisions that get people to that target in an optimal fashion.
Amazing. Right, so let's kick off with some questions then, Felix. So firstly, it's really hard to discern fact from fiction when it comes to the implications of agentic AI. And I think that's probably something the retail industry is struggling with quite a bit at the moment. So can you give us a bit of a lay of the land of where we are right now and what's perhaps imminently coming down the road?
Mm-hmm. So first of all, I think this term of agentic AI is a bit simplistic, or I don't really like it that much. That's how we talk about it now. But I think an analogy to the autonomous driving is helpful here. There's really like multiple levels of, like, let's say, autonomous shopping. On the one hand, you're doing everything manually. And on the other hand, the purchase is done completely without you. And I would say we're still in the beginnings where some of your research of what products you want to do, and also like the intent is automated already. So you can already use ChatGPT to tell you what category you actually want to buy, or like that helps you to understand what you want to buy. And then it also can help you pick some products. But at least in Europe, you can't directly buy on those platforms yet. But that will quickly be implemented. I would say already at the end of this year, it will be live in most of the big chatbots already.
So is it theoretical at this point, agentic retail, or are we actually starting to see agentic retail taking off and being implemented?
It's going to be very, very fast, in my opinion. Yeah, so I think it's implemented right now, and I don't see a technical hurdle that would make it difficult to implement it now. I think the piece that was missing, why it wasn't implemented before, was this intent understanding. And we now have these chatbots who can really understand what you want to buy with what you are writing down, or even what you're talking about. And that's the one piece that was missing, in my opinion. And the rest doesn't even have to do with developments. We don't need AGI for this whole use case to work. It's quite the opposite. Yeah? In order to monetize all the cost of these chatbots, the chatbots are going to be forced to include commerce into their use cases, because that will enable them to monetize all the cost.
Mm-hmm. So I'm going to quote you back to you right now. You have predicted in the past that by the year 2049, most e-commerce transactions won't happen on websites, but inside AI-centric assistants. What then, in your view, is the first major retail function that perhaps quietly becomes obsolete as that shift happens?
Yeah, I think one thing that is astonishing that you have to think about is that everything that's around sorting or website design or ads on your own website, or something that pushes maybe non-performing products on the top, so you still sell them, that won't work anymore. So it's a big question how you will push products which are not performing, or of course, even better, if you're not even producing those products in the first place. Because in 2049, I mean, first of all, I think that it might not even be chatbots. Yeah, it will be most likely like verbally. You will just talk to your phone at that point. And if you want a visualization, you might see it actually on a screen, or maybe you will see it through your smart glasses. So you won't be on your laptop anymore, not on a tablet, and also not on your phone, most likely. And then it's going to be tricky for the brands to push products which are not like in the top 3 of what the chatbot thinks the customer should buy. And that is really the tricky part. How do you push products which are not performing well? Beforehand, right, people were scrolling through the website, seeing thousands of products. Now, actually, you just get like a top 3 recommendation. And if you're not in the top 3, you won't sell anything, basically. It's super tough to push products into that list.
Do you think that there is a layer of retail that this applies to much more logically? So, for example, coffee filters. I doubt many people have that much preference on their coffee filters.
Yeah.
So it makes perfect sense that an AI can just pick one based on customer reviews and what have you, and you can have it delivered. But for something more complex, say a jumper, actually the human preference in there is very significant to whether you're going to want to wear that or not. Is it that the AI will have a really, really good sense of who you are and therefore pick things based on that? Or again, do we just come back to this? It's going to pick you the most logical jumpers that other people have been buying and suggest those to you?
No, I think on fashion, there will also be because it's fun to make a choice in the end as well, right? So in this case, I think the people would want to see how they look in that jumper, and they would want to see on that display, or probably in the smart glasses, just kind of how do I look in that? And then they will still make a choice, but still they won't look at 1,000 jumpers like today, or like let's say on average, people before they buy a jumper, they see 100 jumpers, right? In that world, it doesn't work like that anymore. And again, the problem is if you produce like 500,000 jumpers, which are a little bit off, and they're not getting into the recommendation system of these AI assistants, it's very difficult to push them in the future.
Mm-hmm. So to cut to the chase then, if the AI assistant, not the consumer, is the one making that first decision, do you think that the traditional idea of customer intent is still useful? And if so, for how long will it be? Or does intent itself become a machine constructed signal?
No, okay, maybe differentiated. I think still in many cases the consumer will say, I need this now. And again, what has changed in the last year is that this intent can now be very precisely understood by the AI chatbots, basically, right? They can, and if they don't fully understand it, they will ask you again and say, hey, did you want to buy that jumper? Should it be below $40 or above $40? So they can even ask additional questions to fully understand that intent. So in many cases, it's still going to be a human intent. But then again, maybe in some areas, maybe the coffee machine can actually send a note to your AI assistant autonomously saying, I need a filter. And I know there's none left in the apartment, so please buy it. This would be then fully automated. I don't think that's going to be such an important topic. So the intent still comes from the human, but the AI assistant fully understands this intent, and then makes the selection of products. So it filters products, and it recommends the products that would maximize your historical choices and your utility function. I personally, one thing that I hope in this case actually is that you might also get better choices, right? Because if you go to Amazon today and you type in like any type of product, you often see like cheap Chinese produced products which don't have a very high quality. But if you are like talking to the AI assistant, you often would say, hey, I want a high quality product, and it might not actually pick those low quality products anymore. So there's this hope that this AI assistant really makes your choice more sustainable and better in the long run for everybody in a way as well.
Yeah, that's a really interesting point. And I know previously you've described AI assistants as the new browsers. That's kind of an interesting term to use there. Can you explain what you mean when you say the new browsers? And also, if that's true, what then becomes the equivalent of SEO, which right now is obviously a really important binary that kind of holds the concept of discoverability together. So, SEO, product pages, merchandising, what becomes the equivalent of these things in an agent-driven world?
Yeah, I think the way we are communicating with computers or with the internet will fully change to voice because it's very convenient if that works. For example, today in Europe, Siri cannot do that, right? But we know already that Gemini will be the new Siri, and Gemini S is able to do it already today. So again, I think this creates a lot of urgency for people to wake up now, and because this new world is coming very, very fast. There is no technical hurdle again, yeah, for this new world. And then, yeah, the browser, you won't use it anymore. You won't browse on your phone. Even the apps will be less and less used, most likely, because you don't even have to open your phone to start a conversation for buying something. And then, yeah, the big question is like, how can you influence this again?
Yeah.
Of course, the first thing is you want to understand what people are searching for verbally in this case then. And so you need to fully understand what is the intent of people and where are there pockets of intent that are not covered well at the moment by the offering of my competitors, for example. And then, of course, you have to, so product pages are gone, most likely. And then you would use like APIs to send your product details to those AI assistants. And I think merchandising really has to be very, very fast. So I think also in terms of purchasing, it's not likely that it's okay to order a summer season like 9 months in advance, because it's going to be very difficult to predict what the intent is going to be in 9 months. It's already like that today, but today you can push your products on your website, right? You can sort them up and say, hey, you still sell them. But in that world, I don't think it's going to be that easy. And so it's much more risky to purchase something 9 months in advance. You most likely will have to buy stuff more locally and have a much faster cycle of purchasing and selling.
So do you believe that the kind of SEO level of binary optimization for products then will still exist? It'll just exist in a different way. So I guess if that's the case, what I'm asking is, how do you optimize for an AI assistant picking between several different products?
Yeah, so I think to understand how I would imagine the AI assistant, so they have I think we covered intent, right? So then the AI assistant knows what you want to buy, and they might have some filters. And I think that's the first thing that they will do. You want to buy a high quality coffee machine, let's say, below 600 pounds. And then that's creating a lot of filters inside the machine. And then there is this shopping graph that basically a gigantic database that is constantly updated, where there's all shopping coffee machines that are sold right now. And then you're filtering within that graph the products that might be useful, and you're somehow assessing them. And again, here, it's not really, you don't need AI for that. That's what I'm saying. Again, there is no technical hurdle to do that. I mean, Google Shopping already uses the shopping graph today. And they already do exactly that, right? So they already kind of sort and filter in that graph. It's just a database filtering. And then one thing that I think isn't working that well yet is you're not having this layer of prediction, like how well is the product fitting to the specific consumer. I think here I'm expecting a lot more developments until 2049, because I'm expecting that also these people will kind of play back to the consumer why they think that this is the right product for them, in the sense of, okay, this is like value for money, or this is kind of a very luxurious product, or this is an ecologically friendly product and you said that you want to buy like that, or this is produced maybe in Great Britain and therefore you should buy that. So kind of in that area where you play back, because today they are just displaying the top 3 products, but they're not explaining why these are the top 3 products, right? And I think that will come back. That's it then. And then most people will probably buy one of those 3 products.
But the shopping graph element is really interesting, especially as the kind of the foundation of agentic commerce. So then what are retailers currently not structured to express in a way that machines can understand? I guess that it does drastically change the language that you're using as a retailer for discoverability, especially if you're not relying on these product pages anymore, which are now obviously the kind of the window to the product?
Yeah, so I think any way that your product differentiates in the product category that you are selling in has to fit into the API. Of course, there might also be something like just a text how you describe the product, but it's going to be much more efficient for the shopping graph to work if you have like specific categories. So the coffee machine will have specific coffee machine categories where you describe it, and that already doesn't work so well today. If I'm going to any website, you often don't have like filters on that website that fit really well to the special category, right? Because of course filters for a coffee machine are different than filters for a pullover, for example, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that is difficult, yeah, to have this richness of schemas by product category. That is a big technical challenge. And the better you are able to describe your products in actual API callable metrics, the more likely you will be picked up by those machines. And these schemas, they will develop very, very fast. Yeah, so and they are dynamic. Yeah, so again, coffee machine metrics are going to be much different to like fashion metrics, and they have to be they're updated all the time. And if you are like really fast at that as well, and you're able to send them back instead of describing the product as color red, you are able to send them, oh, this is color in terms of metric, like really color red, then this is going to be easier to be picked up. And I think that's what people have to work on a lot, like brands. How can you like really describe this product well, and how can you catch up with this evolving schema that you are sending over these descriptions in a machine structured way instead of just like one big text that describes the product?
That's a real challenge, isn't it? It does change the way that we literally think about discoverability and e-commerce. I'm wondering if you've seen any brands kind of start to do that in an impressive way. Are there currently exemplars out there who have already nailed this down that we can look at as the kind of the North Star to what good looks like?
Yeah, I think it's one of the first brands that started in the US, right? I think Walmart started with it. I mean, Amazon is trying to be that starting point for shopping on its own, of course. But it has already also started to link the whole internet to its search engine, basically, right? Or to its Rufus AI agent. And it's trying to get there. And then I think, of course, what Google is doing with the Universal Commerce Protocol, I think this was announced last week. This is kind of a protocol that would help orchestrate that whole AI shopping journey. And it would also include kind of APIs for product description. And I think, in my opinion, like Google has a very high likeliness to win this. And it's also, in anyways, an open source approach. So I think this is very likely to be the winner. And then you have to look into that API and try to optimize for that one. Because, of course, there's not just one API at the moment. There's one from Amazon as well. And there's also one from OpenAI. So I guess you can't optimize for all of those together. You have to pick one.
Mm. And then the other thing that it makes me wonder is if this is a constantly evolving prospect of being discoverable and preferable in the eyes of agentic AI, surely the most valuable thing in this world is a tool that does that scanning for you. And, the AI is not only what you're solving for, but also it's what you're using to make sure that you're super discoverable.
Yeah, exactly. Now, if we understood this is how the world will look like at least in the midterm. But again, it's going to happen faster than you think. And then the question is, how can you react as a brand or as a retailer? And I think it's just logical to make sure that you yourself also automate your decisions. So, of course, one way of being more discoverable on agentic systems is, of course, still your price, right? So if you're underselling a certain product, you can reduce the price, and this will make it more likely to be picked up by the system. And that's still something you can do. And here, I think it's less important to be absolutely matching the price. It's more important to be like in the right pricing area. And so this is what our product would do, right? It would kind of say, okay, how much do you want to grow? Or maybe also with a specific product, how much do you still have on stock, and what really optimizes the price in terms of profit until the end of the season, including the write-offs that you would have to do if you're not selling the product at the end of until the end of the season. And I think that's true for pricing, but it's also true for marketing. I mean, OpenAI will also allow for marketing. That's already clear. So you would have to make a marketing decision also on that platform. Again, that's another decision. You don't want to do that manually, right? You also want to be fast and automate that decision as well, at least on the product level. And I would also say in the longer term that product development, so when you create a new product, what product you want to buy, which color, which size, these decisions also have to be automated as well. Because otherwise you're just going to be too slow for this whole system, and it's not optimal enough to survive this.
That's such an interesting point there, that actually it's not just influencing how brands sell their product. It's not only influencing how agents pick up those products and recommend them and potentially buy them. It's also literally influencing the product itself. It's an interesting world where AI has its kind of finger in every aspect of the product pie, from conception through to purchase.
Yeah, for example, right? I mean, let's imagine, you're selling a T-shirt, and then you're not really discoverable because there's so many people selling T-shirts. But maybe people are asking for a specific type of T-shirt with a specific production method, or that is produced, let's say, in Great Britain, and then they want their name to be printed on it. And that's, of course, kind of, again, a completely different filter. And if you figure out that this is a filter that's quite important for people, then you might be winning that specific pocket of demand. But the tricky part is to figure this out. Like, what are people really looking for? And where is like relatively less demand or less competition in which pocket? And that's a very, very tricky question. And again, here you have to automate to better become better at that. And most likely you have to be faster. And then because then you will discover a new pocket, you will test it. And if it works well, you will produce more. But you can't like directly produce like 2,000 T-shirts for that. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it becomes potentially a lot more volatile unless you do have kind of lightning fast research and reactionary tools based on demand. One of the things that you mentioned there, which is really interesting to me, is the concept of pricing. And obviously, most current systems, for discoverability, do take price into account anyway. But it sounds like that could be a much bigger part of agentic AI. Does pricing become more volatile because machines are reacting instantly to pricing, or more stable because they optimize for more long-term outcomes?
Yeah, it depends how you do it, but most people today do like competitor crawling and price matching to competitors, and that is very volatile. And I would say if you are switching to more target-based pricing, what we are doing, something that optimizes your own decision. It considers the competitor pricing, but it mostly considers how much stock you have, what is optimizing your own financials. Then it would actually become less volatile. Yeah? Because you don't follow your competitor if you don't have enough stock, for example, right? And you might actually undercut your competitor because you have actually a lot of stock of a specific product, and it makes sense to undercut in this case because otherwise you have to write that stock off at the end of the season. And that internal decision is typically more stable than this just competitor crawling based decision.
As much as you're looking outwards, you're also really just constantly looking inwards as well at what's happening in your own organization and your stock levels and things like that. So in that sense, that's not a million miles away from where we are currently.
Yeah, but it's today you're not doing an optimization, right? This is the difference, right? Because the consumer will optimize that decision, that purchase decision in the future. They are not today, right? They are just scrolling through websites and picking one. In the future, consumer decision will be optimized because there will be Google doing that optimization for them. And then you also have to start optimizing things. That's what I'm trying to say, right? Because today, crawling your competitor and matching a price, that's not an optimization. It doesn't optimize your financials. What optimizes your financials is if you say, okay, what are my options? I can go up, I can go down. And then you give a target, what you want to achieve. And then a mathematical system picks the best decision that optimizes your pricing decision, basically.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
and that's what people have to start doing in pricing and marketing, but also again in purchasing.
So let me ask you this then. In a world where agents are bypassing ads and banners and landing pages, where does influence actually sit? And like, how can retailers earn influence?
Yeah, I think the first thing is how fast you are in your BI team. How fast can you change those APIs and optimize the usage, whatever the API is offering into that shopping graph? Like that's about data quality, right? So if you're selling a white T-shirt and it's not describing your T-shirt as white, then it won't be in that graph, right, correctly, and it will not be picked. So you have to work hard on like product description quality, and then also how dynamic, how fast you are to improve that description and push it to them. Then I think there will also be some sort of ads available on those new platforms. Again, OpenAI is starting that. And I think another thing, as we talked about this already, you can also play with your price, and this will give you a lever to be more selected, right? Because most people say, for example, they want to buy something below $50, and if you're not below 50, then you won't be picked. But if you are, then you will be picked. So that's an option. Or they just ask for, give me the cheapest option in some cases. Or something that optimizes their value for money. And again, then price is a leverage. So that just becomes maybe a bit more important even. So I think there are still options how you can do that. I don't expect some people are speculating if you can kind of manipulate the training of those models. I'm almost like 99% sure this won't happen. Yeah, they won't do that because then kind of the models are tweaked and non-objective. And so I don't think that they will actually allow that to be the case.
Another question that what you just said raised is, so, okay, with Google, obviously you can basically pay to be ultra discoverable. You can pay to own a certain tag and appear at the top of search results as a kind of a sponsored post. With AI, if it's making the decisions for you, if an agent is making the decisions for you, surely as a consumer, having trust in that agent that their results they're giving you are fair, balanced, unbiased, really based on your specific needs, surely that trust is diminished if you can essentially do the same thing as getting to the top of Google results and push your product, pay to have your product more suggested by the AI agent. Is there kind of a bit of a conflict about trust in there that you could foresee?
Absolutely. And I think you already see that. I mean, Google is saying you won't see ads for now because it's interested in market share. And OpenAI cannot afford that anymore, and they have to add ads now, right? And so that will already shift a lot of people to Google Gemini, actually. And then, of course, because of that trust issue that you described, they will have to mark the products as advertised. So they might give you the top 3 products plus 2 advertised products, and then you see 5 products actually in the end. And just like for Amazon, they will mark them and say, okay, this is not actually my recommendation, but it's just an advertised product that is kind of still in the list. Yeah, and they will do that, or you are paying for the chatbot. Because the chatbots are very expensive, actually, and they will become cheaper, of course, but they're still pretty expensive. Of course, if you think for until 49, right, I mentioned that I don't even expect people to always look at a display when they're doing this purchase. So then question is like, are they reading out an advertisement like for Spotify or something like that? And that's a difficult one. And I don't think they've figured this out yet. How to enable ads in this world where you really don't really see anything anymore on your display all the time, but you're rather just talking to your assistant. And I think that's not clear yet.
Yeah. What an interesting development that will be when they work that out. Because I completely agree with you. I think I've talked to ChatGPT. It's got this really interesting function where it kind of sounds very human. And if I'm talking to that individual, that agent, and they're saying, "Do you want anything today?" and I say, "Yeah, I really fancy a new jumper." How do they work in the commercial angle they're being paid to work in? I can't foresee a world in which people kind of tolerate the idea of ads being spoken to them in their ears. I don't know. It's an interesting one.
Yeah, I think it's gonna be two-tiered like today for most things. It's gonna be still very expensive to run this AI assistant because at that point it will run all the time. It's like Siri, right? It's running all the time. It's all the time listening to what you're saying, and it's all the time creating cost also. So you will have to pay for that at some point, or you're allowing ads. That's the two options. Maybe the like Apple and Google, they can still afford to run this for free for a while, but it will be monetized at some point. For now, they're running it for free because they want to gain market share. But there will, as soon as, let's say, Google owns like 80% of AI-assisted commerce, they will start monetizing it as well. And then that's a bit scary to say that, but yeah, and then you don't have a choice really, because this market is so big and it's so dominant that you have to be on that market as a brand or as a retailer. And this is also what makes me scared a bit at the moment, to be honest, because I don't really see anybody who is well positioned to become a competitor in this AI assisted purchasing market landscape.
Yeah, a bit of a monopoly perhaps in the future. But that raises another really interesting question. If that's something, we're so close to the epicenter of the birth of AI. We're so close to the initial kind of nucleus invention at the heart of AI. I'm talking in the kind of the grand scheme of history, that there are so many variables and so many other unknowns. I wonder if there are any other big variables or unknowns that not keep you up at night, but maybe keep you pondering, the things that you mull over when you're deep in thought about what AI will be in the future, or what AI agents will be in the future.
Yeah, I think for this use case, in a way, unfortunately, again, as I said, there is nothing needed anymore to develop this. Again, Google already has today everything it needs to develop this. The only thing that was missing was that the intent couldn't be understood verbally so well, and that is fixed now. And so all the rest is already there. The shopping graph is there, the APIs are there. It doesn't depend on AGI. It does not. So no, I have 100% certainty that this is coming, and it's coming extremely fast because of the monetization aspect, right? They're basically, everybody's running these chatbots for free right now, more or less. And they are forced to monetize that somehow, and you monetize it with the commerce use case. And therefore, this is coming extremely fast. It will also happen a lot faster than like the move to mobile or so. I think one aspect, if you're a platform in Germany or in Europe right now, and you have a very successful commerce app, you can try to develop an AI assistant that is very specialized. Let's say Zalando tries to develop a fashion AI assistant that is extremely good, and it just makes a better job than Gemini's general shopping agent. And then you might still go to Zalando buying clothes there because you just prefer that AI assistant to Gemini. But it's not going to be an easy one to develop that.
Surely that's a Herculean task. I mean, that is an interesting point, because it's like in influencer marketing, I guess. We're seeing such a rise in small scale, very, very targeted influencers on platforms like TikTok and places like that, where actually they have such a targeted demographic of fans that it's really beneficial for you as a retailer if those are your prime audience. So you could call it the fracturing of like wide scale marketing into very specific categories. I guess people could take that upon themselves in a similar way with agents and make them that are very specialized to a specific area.
Yeah, people will have develop a lot of trust to their personal AI assistant, and that will be the thing that is living in your phone right now. So it will be Siri, or probably you have a choice there. So you might be able to switch from Siri to something else. But there will be a general AI assistant, that's already clear, I think. And then there might be, you might try to develop a more specialized AI assistant. And you might be able to switch to that one also via verbally, right? You might say, okay, Siri, please connect me to the Zalando AI assistant, and I want to buy something now. And then that thing takes over. That's also possible. But you have to be extremely good, and you definitely have to start developing this right now, because the Americans, they're working on this already, right? And that means like every big shopping platform, every marketplace in Europe right now has to really start developing this today to be competitive, because the Americans are putting hundreds of billions into this right now, and nobody in Europe has that much money to develop it at the moment.
I'm going to ask you one final question then. If you had to give retail CEOs one uncomfortable truth about agentic AI that perhaps they don't really want to hear right now but do need to, what would that one uncomfortable truth be?
It's coming much, much faster than they think. Again, why is it coming so fast? Because there's so much money behind it right now, right? Again, billions, hundreds of billions of euros are invested in commerce, these applications right now. And this commerce application, the one we talked about today, is the one that monetizes that whole investment. It's monetizing the hundreds of billions that went into OpenAI. And therefore, they will put everything they have into the shopping use case. And that's why it's going to come much, much faster than people are thinking right now. It's not live in Europe right now, but it will go live this year. And it will already have a decent market share at the end of the year. But then it's growing rapidly. So I think there's not a lot of time. That's the uncomfortable truth.
Yeah, there's not a lot of time. Interesting. Well, it's been really, really interesting to talk to you. Thank you so much for your time. And I look forward to hopefully speaking to you about this again. Maybe when, some more very fundamental things have happened and we can find out whether some of these predictions were correct and where everything's heading.
Thank you so much for the invitation. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.